First of all, I want to thank everyone for attending today's press conference. This is a significant day again in the lives of the Hope Commission and the Achievement Center. I want to acknowledge a few people in the room before we get started. Although this is about a couple bills that are being signed today, there are some people in the room who I think should be acknowledged. There are a number of legislators. I see JJ, Stephanie Bolden. Am I missing anyone? Bryan Townsend. And Paul Baumbach. And City Council Member Darius Brown. Also want to acknowledge Hope Commission board members. I see Ray Siegfried from Christiana Care, Lynn Howard, Arlene Coppage, Larry Morris, and our board chair Mike Pazicki, along with Kathy Jennings. Again, today I got a call last week from the governor's office, Drew Fennell, to ask if we would host today's press conference, and I was delighted for the opportunity to, again, welcome people back to the Achievement Center. Many of you may know the Achievement Center is the state's only full-service, comprehensive reentry center for formerly returning offenders. Our target are men who are returning to the city of Wilmington who are considered to be high risk for return without some intervention. So again, we're happy to have these three bills signed here today. I want to go further by allowing myself to introduce Governor Jack Markell, who will talk a little bit more about the bills and have our formal signature.
Thanks, Charles, and I want to thank you for your very strong leadership here and the important work that you're doing. I know there are a bunch of you, but I do think at an event like this, there are so many people who are coming from different perspectives. It would be helpful if we went real quickly, if you could just introduce yourself and who you represent, so that everybody can see that there are lots of folks who believe in this legislation. Now, you don't have to stand up. Okay.
I'm Dr. Michael Harper. I represent the State University Commission as well as South Africa.
Thank you.
I'm Cheryl Collins. I'm here with the representative discussion to Bolden and here for the United States. I'm Jessica Carolina.
Corie Creek. I work for Recovery Intervention. I am a health defender.
And you'll be hearing Corey's story in a couple minutes. Yep.
Good morning, Lynn Howard. Good morning, President Coppin. Good morning, Stephanie King, who will take Bolden. Second district.
Doug Hunter, Connection Community Support Program. Trying to break these connections to the
Larry Morris, Hope Commission Board, and staff will come.
Ray Siegfried on the Hope Commission Board, Christiana Care.
I'm Forrest Watson, CEO of the new health center that's opening up or has opened up at the Northeast State Service Center, which is a couple doors down. We provide integrated health, including mental health and practice and mental health.
I'm Lisa Davis. I'm Spring Marina. I support the Madden in the program for the Senate. I'm still
Citizen's most important title in the country.
Good morning, I'm Evan Clark. I'm from State Health out here in Delaware. Good morning, everyone. Bryan Lewis, and I'm from the Delmarva Public Radio.
Dr. Benjamin Kenzie Johnson, there, we're doing the summer youth program.
I'm Dwight L. Davis. I'm the president of the Motivational Center and administrator of the Wilmington Pardon Teaching Assistance Center.
Rob Coupe, Department of Corrections.
Dr. Jennings, State Prosecutor and member of the Hope
McConnel,
I'm Siobhan Taylor. I live around the corner. I'm the adult child of a former incarcerated father and a former employee.
We'll let you guys introduce yourselves in the back. Go ahead.
Commissioner Dr. I'm here with NBC Senate.
Okay. All right. I know how much you guys love introducing yourselves, so if you want to skip it, you can. All right, okay, all right. Yeah, okay, fair enough. All right, well, thank you for doing that. I just think it's important that everybody here, who all the other people in the room are, because it takes a lot of people to make all of this work. So every piece of legislation that I'm going to sign today is important in its own right, and it's going to have a significant impact on our efforts to move toward a more effective criminal justice system. But we should also recognize, I believe, that the sum is greater than the whole of what these bills stand for is greater than the sum of the parts. And together they represent what I believe is a philosophical change of how to address the many challenges that are related to our offender population, the vast majority of whom are going to re-enter our communities. Less than 25 years ago, there were fewer than 700,000 people who populated the entire state and federal prison system. So 25 years ago, 700,000 people in total, just a little less than 700,000 people in our prison system across the country. By the end of the last decade, 700,000 was the number of people that we released every year from that system, each year. And so in Delaware, I believe that we have reached a tipping point. Our incarceration rate is higher than the national average, in a country whose incarceration rate is among the highest in the world. Our prisons are over capacity, and none of this has made us any safer. Instead, we have these stubbornly high rates of recidivism, and we see major obstacles that face ex-offenders who try to build a productive life after their sentence ends. And with the help of a lot of leaders across our state, including the members of the General Assembly, and who you'll be hearing from later, and including the Attorney General's office, I'm going to ask Ian to come up at some point, and certainly we appreciate the support of the Attorney General. A lot of people are working hard to change the approach, and I do believe that the Hope Commission has been really center to a lot of that work, and we're grateful to all of you who are involved. And so these changes mean that, as an example, while offenders will still receive, they'll still receive a risk assessment when they enter the system to see what kind of risk they pose to others in the institution. We also now know that they ought to be getting a needs assessment so that we can do a better job of figuring out what it's going to take for them to be successful when they get out, to really give them a roadmap. We're moving to an approach that still ensures that offenders serve their time, but also that they have a fair opportunity to get a job and contribute to their families and their state when they're released. And we've recognized that our laws can better reflect our belief that every case should be evaluated on an individual basis to determine the appropriate punishment, but also the appropriate path forward for each offender. So as of today, we have restored judicial discretion in our sentencing laws by permitting judges, when appropriate, to impose concurrent rather than consecutive sentences for multiple offenses. And I want to thank, again, the Attorney General's office for working on this. I also want to thank the former Attorney General of Delaware, Charlie Oberle, for his suggestions about that bill. That change is complemented by the budget that I just signed a week and a half ago, or last week, which funds a pretrial supervision program to keep nonviolent individuals out of prison altogether when possible. And I want to thank the Commissioner who's here for really pushing that and pushing me during the budget process to include that in our budget. We know that one of the best indicators about whether somebody is going to reoffend is whether or not they have a job. And so we've taken unprecedented steps to give ex-offenders a fair opportunity to earn a job. Earlier this year, with the tremendous leadership of Representative J.J. Johnson, we forbade public employers from asking ex-offenders to check the box on job applications, because the bottom line is that practice was denying them a fair chance to interview. Today, we give the Department of Correction the ability to offer short-term employment to ex-offenders who demonstrate exceptional job skills. And that's important because people need to be able to prove that they can hold a job, and it's good to have on their resume. And we also end the mandate that nonviolent offenders lose their driver's license even when their crime isn't related to driving. And in a few moments, you're going to hear about the significance of that law. Now, we still have a lot of work to do to transform our approach to criminal justice to one that best keeps people safe while spending taxpayers' money wisely, and also giving ex-offenders the opportunity to serve their communities after they have served their time. But today's event is a chance for us to celebrate the progress we've made. It's the chance to remember that we're never going to reach our potential as a state if we give up on a great number of people who frankly can make a real contribution, especially once they've repaid their debt to society. I think we could be proud of the work that we've done together, and I look forward to continuing to partner with the General Assembly, organizations like the Hope Commission, the folks from the Delaware Center for Justice, and all of you to make Delaware stronger. So what I would like to do next, I want to ask Ian McConnell if he wants to come up and say a word on behalf of the Attorney General, and then going to ask Commissioner Coupe if he wants to say anything. He didn't know I was going to say that. And then I'm going to ask the members of the General Assembly to come up to talk about the bills. But I do think today is absolutely a step in the right direction. But I'm telling you, and you're going to be hearing more about, I've got 2 more years to go. I have 2 more General Assemblies to go. And we need to make more steps. We have a lot of additional work to do. And I think one of the reasons that I asked everybody to introduce themselves at the beginning is because I wanted you all to see a lot of folks, different perspectives, understand that we have a lot of work we still have to do. Ian?
Thank you, sir. Again, Ian McConnell with the AG's office. And obviously, I've got Kathy Jennings here with me representing Beau Biden. I'm very pleased to be here with you this morning. This legislation we supported and worked with the governor's office and the sponsors, so thank you very much for allowing us to be part of that process. We think that the result is to the benefit of all Delawareans. I'd echo the governor's comments that this is a starting point, that we are at a beginning phase of looking at our criminal justice code, the laws that are on our books, and trying to understand, are they shaped in a way that strikes the right balance between holding people accountable for violating our laws and giving them the best possible opportunities to succeed on a going forward basis. Kathy Jennings just spent last week in a trial, Jermaine Wright. Some of you may have heard about it or read about it. A small 5-year-old girl got shot in the leg on Pleasant Street, July 17, 2013. Right down the road. The 3 people that testified in the state's case were 3 recovering heroin addicts. And Kathy reminded me this morning as we were sort of sitting around trying to discuss how we're going to move the office forward on a going forward basis. The change that she saw in the course of prosecuting that case, where someone was actually afforded the chance to obtain help and recover and proceed forward in their life in a way that's healthy and realizes their full potential. And so those three former recovering drug addicts came and testified on behalf of the state and held somebody accountable. And that's an example, I think, of what the power of government can do when brought to bear to really actually help shape people's lives in a positive way with community support. So these laws that we have been changed reflect that. They reflect the lifeline of a driver's license for somebody trying to get a job after being, serving their time, having spent time in prison. So it reflects an acknowledgement that we have an obligation to make sure our laws set people up for success on a going forward basis. And the idea that sentencing should be done in a way that is holistic with judicial discretion, looking at all factors so that you're not putting folks away for long periods of time in a disproportionate manner. So I applaud the governor, I applaud the sponsors of this legislation. We're here and committed to work on a going forward basis for the next 2 years, and then I know on an ongoing basis on these sorts of efforts, because they're wonderful. So thank you. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Coupe, and as he is walking up, I want to say I think it's extremely valuable for us to have, as Commissioner of Corrections, somebody who is so committed, doing a great job, and really is working extremely well with people in the community.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate that. Thank you. And it's an honor to be here today and represent the Department of Correction. And just a sincere thanks first to Representative J.J. Johnson, because he's the first person that outside the governor's office I talked to about this plan, and he immediately embraced it. And if you look at the bill, how many sponsors there were, some are here today, they embraced it as well. And I think that's reflective of not just the DOC's mindset, the governor's mindset, but the leadership of the General Assembly. So thank you, sir. We appreciate your leadership and all the sponsors. Specifically to talk about HB 264, which is about giving opportunities for ex-offenders after they've completed one of our vocational programs, that we can hire them back as a part-time employee for up to 6 months to work in that program. And it came from a brainstorming session with my staff where we realized we want to develop our vocational programs better to help with reentry, but we realized when an offender finishes that program, suddenly they're thrust back into the community. They don't have work, but they have a skill. So what we wanted to do was provide them with a more stable environment as they go back, because now when they go back to their families, back to their communities, they can come back and say, you know, I have this skill, I've been in this program, I performed exceptionally, and because of that, DOC has hired me back. So for the next 6 months, I have employment while I look for full-time employment in the community. What it means for DOC is they get to come back, they're role models to the other offenders, they're mentors to the other offenders, and they're also helping us transition new employees that come into the program. So it has a potential to be a win-win, and the funding comes from the program itself. So we're not taking tax dollars, we're not competing with the open market in the community. It's really about providing stability for them, confidence for them, and rewarding them. Because, you know, we hear so much about the punishment of prison. This is about rewarding, you know, good behavior, about hard work, and that's what these folks will be. They'll be role models for that, to show that if you work hard, you learn this skill, DOC will reward you. So the law prevented us from doing that. So with the help of the governor, with the help of the General Assembly, we knocked down that barrier. It is limited to 6 months because we want to make sure we can give other folks the opportunity too. So we're very excited about this opportunity and very appreciative of all the support we receive. So thanks, Governor.
I appreciate it. Okay, thanks. So what we're going to do now, I'd like to ask all the members of the General Assembly to come on up, and then I'm going to ask each of you to talk about your bills. And then I'm going to ask Corie to come up to tell your story, and then I'm going to sign bills. So, Stephanie, Paul, come on up. All right. So Representative Bolden will talk about House Bill 312. All right.
Good afternoon, everyone. First, I'd like to thank the governor as well as Drew now and Kathy Jennings for working on this particular piece of legislation. House Bill 312 restores judicial discretion to allow the imposition of either concurrent or consecutive sentences, bringing Delaware in line with 49 other states and the federal government. Although we're the last state to actually implement this law, it is still very important that we were able to do it at this time by giving our excellent judges, which one is my sorority sister, the discretion. They can weigh each defendant's situation and make the best decisions for them and for the justice system. Judges will now be able to determine whether a person should serve consecutive sentences, which is more time in prison, or concurrent, which would be less time. Our judges are on the bench for a reason, and this bill allows them to do their job more efficiently, and we trust their discretion. That's what House Bill 312 does.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Representative Johnson will talk about House Bill 264.
Good afternoon. Governor, other elected officials, you know, it's an honor for me to be here this afternoon. And I have to tell you why. Now, Representative Bolden will welcome you to the 2nd District, and Darius will welcome you to his City Councilmatic District. But I'm here to welcome you this morning to my old neighborhood. This is where I was raised, right here on Palmer's Road. Palmer's Road is missing now. And then the house used to be right next to the house I lived in was right next to the Hope Center now, which was Layman's Machine Shop. And my mother used to work right across the street at Webb's Cleaners, folding shirts. So every time I come back in this area, it brings back memories to me. And it's an honor for me to be here this morning to talk about the legislation. I also like to acknowledge, Governor, if I may, the leadership that he's led in these efforts. Because it's not just about this legislation or just about these 3 bills. It's an initiative that Governor Markell took when he first took office with the IADAP program and the Justice Reinvestment Act. These are just a few of the issues that he decided to do to address the incarceration within the state, as he spoke about earlier. And I think of this not just as a moral issue, but a financial issue. As a member of the Joint Finance Committee, I know there are several other priorities that we would like to fund rather than incarceration. And providing for the Hope Commission is one of them. This bill here, what is it? 264. This came about because of what the commissioner mentioned earlier. And it also came about because of a visit that we had to Georgetown, the Violation of Probation Center. And I saw the vocational programs that they had down there. And they had several vocational programs. And what really impressed me more so than the vocational program was the dedication of the corrections officers and the employees at that facility. They were there to help the offenders learn. Matter of fact, we have had some employees come back from their vacation. They had vacation, it was deer hunting season, and they even came back to show us around. We saw where they had farms and where they were raising fish. They also was butchering deer and pardon? Pardon, and as well as small auto repair, minor auto repair, I would say. And the commissioner mentioned it then that how he would like to be able to hire some of these inmates or the offenders after they were released, not only to provide them with a job occupation, but also to allow them to teach the other offenders. And I thought that was such a good idea, and I agreed to sponsor the legislation. And I also would like to mention that, it's not often that we can build a consensus with the Attorney General's office and the General Assembly, because we've disagreed on some legislation. And we certainly have, but it's good. It's good to build a consensus and have legislation that we can all agree on that benefits the whole community and the whole state. So I want to thank the Attorney General's office for being here this morning and supporting this legislation also. So thank you.
Thank you, JJ.
Right.
Senator Townsend.
Thank you, Governor Markell. I definitely want to endeavor to be brief, partly because my colleagues and the governor and Commissioner Coupe, I think, have outlined it very well, but also because the sooner the ink is dry on this legislation, the better off Delaware is, in my view. I want to commend the governor not only on Senate Bill 217 and Senate Joint Resolution number 9, which relate to the automatic revocation of driver's licenses for drug offenses and convictions, but as others have said, for the fact that this is not just the start. There's been an effort underway for some time now, led by the governor, to really reorient how we approach criminal justice. I know that when I was campaigning in 2012, I was asked by a hopeful constituent. I knocked on her door. She said, look, I want to support you, but I want you to read the new Jim Crow. I promised her, I said, the primary is going to be a little bit tough in 2012. I promise you the first thing I'll do after primary day is to read the new Jim Crow, which is what I did. Turns out the governor had made that, I believe, had made that required reading among his staff. And I think first it was so eye-opening to me. The details, the facts, I think were most eye-opening. I was aware that the system had to be changed, and I think there are very morally troubling issues. But what it did is it reminds me that it's not just about the laws on the books. It's not just about the language that we as legislators can try to craft. It's also about how it's enforced by law enforcement, how it's prosecuted by the Attorney General, how it's adjudicated by judges, and we still have a long way to go, but the governor and his team have helped us take tremendous strides in the past months and the past couple of years. I'm very thankful to have been part of that as I came in 2012 to the General Assembly. I'm also very thankful anytime that J.J. Johnson or Drew Fennell approach me. I almost want to give like a standing permission for J.J. to sign me up for any bill that he's doing. Senate Bill 217, which was generated by the governor's office and really strongly supported by them, and I commend them for that, gets at that issue of striking the right balance between public safety and individual opportunity, and making sure that the laws in the books accurately reflect the kind of behavior that we as a society and we as a community feel should be done and should not be done. But that when there is misbehavior as defined by our laws, that the punishment is appropriate and that it is not designed in a way, unintentionally or intentionally, to actually be counterproductive, to actually put people who conducted some kind of behavior in a position for the rest of their lives or even for a few years where they're not able to make it back to the kind of behavior that contributes to public safety. So Senate Bill 217 and Senate Joint Resolution 9 ensure that if you are convicted for a drug offense that has nothing to do with an automobile, that you don't lose your license. Because we believe that that kind of outcome is most likely to put you in a position where you're stuck in the criminal justice system. And we need to make sure that as much as we want to have public safety be a hallmark of Delaware, that we don't have bars of a prison turn into a revolving door. We all know there's a high recidivism rate. I commend the governor for taking steps and planning additional steps to address that. I think Senate Bill 217 and Senate Joint Resolution 9 is part of that effort. I'm very proud to stand alongside J.J. Johnson, Stephanie Bolden, and Paul Baumbach as the governor signs this legislation, and look forward to taking additional steps in coordination with the governor to try to make sure that we right a lot of the wrongs that are present right now in our society.
Thanks, Brian. Nice job. Thank you. Paul, anything you want to say a few words?
Yes to all of the above. I was so proud and pleased for the opportunity to be a co-sponsor on all four of these bills. And as the governor said, this package is much more than the sum of the parts. And we've got big, complex problems and challenges before us, and we need a multifaceted approach for them. And these are four pieces of that approach. And it's an approach that requires multi-departments working together. Leadership of the governor. Representative J.J. Johnson mentioned the Justice Reinvestment Act, got the recidivism initiative of our governor. These are really important steps to move forward. Thank you for being here. In the grand scheme of things, I was brought up in a very sheltered environment. And one of my biggest aha moments was when I was working with Delaware Money School and the Earned Income Tax Credit, doing tax returns for people. And I sat down, I said, where's your last year's tax return? Because that's what you do with taxes. The guy said, I don't have one, I was in prison. Now, I had to show no shock, but I'm like, gosh, I've never been, that I know of, 2 feet away from someone who's a past offender. And then I realized he's here because he's got a job, and he's filling out a tax return. And this is our question as Delaware. Do we want to give people a hand up, or do we want to kick them when they're down? And these are 4 bills to give people a hand up after they've done their time. Let's give them a hand up, be part of our society, strengthen our society, strengthen our communities. Thank you all for being here. Thanks for being part of this.
Thanks, Paul. I want to thank all members of the General Assembly. Don't go far because I'll sign the bill in a few minutes. But before I do that, Corie, thank you for being here and sharing your story.
Good afternoon, you all. Oh, I'm very excited. Look, when he was reading these bills off, I was literally getting goosebumps because I know for a fact that these bills would have greatly affected me coming home from jail. In 2011, I was released from incarceration after serving 2 years for trafficking marijuana. And sitting in my room, in my bunk, I would always self-reflect and realize and think about how and what I was going to do when I came home. Where I was going to stay, how was I going to get a job, and how was I going to support my family. And I started thinking that they sent me this paper that my license was suspended for 3 years. So I don't know how I'm going to navigate through the system and through the community without a license. So I was released June 30th with a job already. So that was a big issue for me. So I had a job working for Connections as a drug and alcohol counselor, but it was in Delaware City. I didn't have a license. So my supervisor asked me, Corie, are you going to be able to make it back to work, back and forth every day down in Delaware City? Of course. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but of course I would make it, So the weeks at work, back and forth on the bus and my family, back and forth. And the lady at work said, you know what, where do you live? I said, I live around the corner on 36th Street. She said, well, I live at Colony North. I could take you back and forth to work every day. I said, wow. So, back and forth to work every day, but now I have probation. I have aftercare. So how was I going to navigate and get to those places without a license? Talk to my counselor, talk to my probation officer. They always worked around my schedule, but it was still rough trying to get to and fro without a license. And I contacted my judge, to see if I can get a provisional license. I couldn't get that because my license was suspended before I went to jail. So that was another obstacle I had to overcome. So that being said, is we all go through these problems and we all go through some things where we need each other to pick us up. And these bills right here are just mind-boggling, and I'm definitely excited to have these bills on the table so we can get them signed and my peers coming home from jail have something to look forward to so they could provide and produce for their families, and so we could, all lift each other up. And one other thing, working at Connections and understanding that I'm a drug and alcohol counselor, I give back what was given to me. A lot of these folks don't have no one to look to other than the ones that already walked this path with them. So I worked there for a year, and I found a new opportunity at Recovery Innovations as a peer recovery coach for citizens who has mental disabilities. And I had the background because I was a drug and alcohol mental health counselor for Connections. With that background in my life experience growing up on 23rd and Jessup, all that embodied what I had to offer to the individuals I serve. So busting my behind at work, busting my behind at home to support my family, and then, after the year comes up, I can get my license. I took the test, and the written and then the driver's test, and I got my license, and it was like my identity was restored. My identity was restored. And then I said, you know what, I'm busting my butt at work. How about I put in for a promotion? Why not? So put in for the promotion and got it. I'm a team leader at my job now. I supervise 30 individuals who ensure the wellness of citizens at work. And I asked one of my coworkers to come because, and I don't want to put her on the spot, but I will. Her name is Jessica. I asked her to come here because, I want to be where she wants to be, but she looks up to me. It's kind of interesting because she's going to school, she's working on her master's, I'm going to school and working on my associates, and she looks up to me, and she's someone where I want to be there. I want to have my master's so I can start doing what I do and getting the big money, I guess, It's hard getting the money without a degree, but she looks up to me, and that touches my soul because I'm an ex-con. That don't define who I am, but, it's on my back. And I always, it's interesting, she always picks my brain. She picks my brain like, I look up to you. You're my favorite black friend. I work for us by though. But yeah, and it's something that, not just her, but the guys in jail now that's incarcerated. I kid you not, I get 3 calls a month from guys in jail wanting to know if their jobs that are hiring, how can I get this when I come home? Can you talk to my baby mom? My family is going through something, can you give me some advice? GTL, I think I need to be, GTL. That's the phone system in the prison that, can you add $25 more? And I do it every week because I know guys calling me every single week wanting information and advice that I have to offer. And this rectangle thing right here, we all take for granted. We all take for granted. But I cherish it. Lord knows I cherish it. Lord knows. Thanks a lot.
Jim Elder, would you like to say anything?
Just when I thought I was off the hook.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. Certainly is a tough act to follow. And there's not much that I can add that hasn't already been said. But in the event that I say something I regret, I've prepared some remarks.
Maybe I should try that.
Yeah. So I introduced myself earlier. I'm the Director of Clinical Operations for the Hope Commission. And I've been involved in criminal justice treatment and around correctional programming for close to 20 years. During that 20 years of working in Delaware and across the country, there's two simple, very important, yet simple lessons that I've learned. And the first one is that if something doesn't work, stop doing it. The next one is if something works, do more of it. Today, I believe, represents doing more of what works. Along with other recently enacted reforms like Senate Bill 226, which promotes informed decision-making in the criminal justice system by institutionalizing the use of evidence-based practices, Governor Markell's signing of these legislations today signals Delaware's continued commitment to joining a growing movement across our nation. A movement that requires courts, corrections, and treatment providers to do more of what works and less of what doesn't. In short, requiring us all to get smart on crime. I think that the U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder said it best in August of last year in his remarks to the American Bar Association. Mr. Holder stated, "In our nation, a vicious cycle of poverty, drugs, crime, and incarceration traps too many people and weakens far too many communities. However, many aspects of our criminal justice system may actually exasperate this problem rather than alleviate it." Holder adds that while aggressive enforcement of state and federal statutes remain a necessity, as a society, we are now beginning to understand we cannot prosecute and incarcerate our way to becoming safer. To be effective and efficient, states must also focus on preventing low-risk defendants from entering prison in the first place and direct resources and evidence-based reentry services targeting high-risk offenders pre- and post-release. So today not only celebrates what works, but honors the hard work and timeless efforts of legislators, policymakers, and other professionals and nonprofit organizations that are in the room here today who believe in getting smart on crime. But not only believe in getting smart on crime, but believe that justice-involved people have the potential to change. We believe in their capacity to transform from inmate to ex-offender and from employee to citizen and to parent, provided, as this legislation allows, they're given the opportunity to do so. Many of us who hold on to this belief also understand that successful initiatives aimed at criminal justice reform and improved opportunities for reintegration translates to safer streets, restoration of families, stronger communities, and fewer victims of crime. The roadblocks, as Corie has just attested to reentry are many. Access to public housing and public benefits, access to occupational licenses and gainful employment, to name just a few. Without sufficient supports and services to assist former offenders in navigating these barriers, and without empirically sound services that are tailored to the unique needs of returning citizens, people leaving prison pose the greatest probability of reoffending. thereby perpetuating the cycle of incarceration, drugs, and crime to which Holder refers. The Wilmington Hope Commission and our one-stop offender reentry center, the Achievement Center, I believe is uniquely situated to partner with the state to do more of what works at helping inmates become fathers, employees, and contributing members of society. Our approach here to reentry marshals existing state resources through collaboration with existing state agencies and other nonprofit organizations to administer programming that's customized to the risk and needs of those leaving prison. The Achievement Center is grounded in the cumulative findings of 30 years of research about what works in reducing recidivism. Reducing recidivism while improving public safety, as everyone has mentioned here, is no easy task, but it must be done. While today is a milestone on the road toward reform, there's much work ahead of us. Our nation's recidivism rates remain alarmingly high, and our state, unfortunately, is no exception. We still have a long way to go in changing laws and policies to fully support programs and other opportunities for the reintegration of individuals who are returning home to our communities from prison. The Achievement Center and the Wilmington Hope Commission is honored to host this event, and even more honored to join the state as the ideal partner to combat the corrosive social and economic costs associated with this seemingly viral epidemic of poverty, drugs, crime, and incarceration. I would like to thank Governor Markell, members of his administration, and the rest of you here today for your continued support of the Achievement Center, as together we do more of what works and less of what doesn't. Thank you.
Okay, so why don't you guys all join me, Corie, you too, come on up. All right, so House Bill 264, this is the sponsored by Representative Johnson, and this is the one that Commissioner Coupe also described as enabling the Department of Correction to hire ex-offenders who have come out of their vocational training program, and it is now the law of Delaware. So, there you go. House Bill 312, sponsored by Representative Bolden, Stephanie Terrific Bolden, is the one that gives judges the discretion, and Delaware finally joins the other 49 states in allowing for concurrent and not just consecutive sentencing. So in a state where we have an incarceration rate that's higher than the national average, hopefully this is a little bit of a step to take it down. So thank you, Stephanie. And this is Senate Bill 217, which is the one sponsored by Senator Townsend, along with Senator McDowell and Representative Johnson. And this is the bill that Corie also referred to that says you shouldn't lose your driver's license if your crime didn't have anything to do with driving. And so I think this is a very good bill, and appreciate it being signed or passed. There you go. All right. And the final is a Senate joint resolution which was necessary essentially to implement Senate Bill 217. So that is our package. Thank you very much, all of you, and we've got a lot more work to do. Thanks.